Peter, it's really loud back here, but tell everybody what we're doing.
So lately we've been kind of obsessed with all the different ways that you can tackle a Brut IPA and IPAs in general. This time we're going to play with some different yeast that we have that is supposedly enzymatic in and of itself. It is a proprietary still spirits product that is meant for making whiskey, and we have no idea what it'll taste like in beer. So we're making a 10-gallon batch of extract, and we're not only going to test how that yeast will break down the extract, but if just using the regular AMG enzyme that we've been using in our other brutes is powerful enough to take down the pre-formulated fermentability of an extract brew. So can you do an extract, whatever it's called, Brut IPA?
Extract Brut IPA, that's what we're going to try out today. So right now, I got my kettle boiling right in front of Peter here. Well, kind of coming up to a boil. So I'm going to do a regular condensed batch like most people are used to. Coming over here, we got all of our bugs. We got London ESB because that's going to drop bright for us, and a random spray ball because Peter likes to play with balls. And then we also have the distiller's yeast. And if you look carefully, this has the amyloglucosidase in it. Oh, maybe on the back somewhere. And we're going to do a half-pound edition of Hallertau Blanc right at flame out. We're only going to do a 10-minute boil with this because there's no reason to do anything more than that. And that's going to give us a little bit of flavor. We might throw some cryo hops into the kegs. We'll see. Maybe, maybe not. See what this gives us. And it's a really basic beer today. And so let's get at it. I almost forgot to give you the grain breakdown. All extract. We got 12 pounds of Pilsendiamine, a pound of dextrose, corn sugar. That should get us an ABV somewhere in the 6.5s, maybe pushing 7, depending on what our volume ends up at. But really simple. I'm trying to keep this as light as possible. That's also why I'm not doing the extended boil. All those do is darken beers, which this should be a nice, super, super pale colored beer. Bam! That's how easy this can be. So hopefully AMG and or that whiskey yeast go to town, make some craziness. We're going to drink some beer in 2 weeks. Dang. But maybe for you, it's going to be in 2 seconds, 1,000, 2, 1. We cut in, and it is actually not 2 weeks, but 3 or 4 weeks past brew day now. And so we have the 2 different beers sitting in front of us. This one was clear.
It was clear, and then I just shook up the keg.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have unfiltered beer.
It wasn't quite this clear, though. That is gorgeous.
That is pretty wicked clear. But anyway, on my left hand, your right, we have the 1968 London ESB fermented Brutes, and on the right we have the one fermented with whiskey yeast.
Whiskey yeast. And as may have already been mentioned, or will in the future be mentioned, the 1968 one did have an enzyme addition during fermentation. The whiskey yeast produces its own enzyme, so that was not needed.
First note before we get into tasting, I thought was really interesting while the London ESB strain with the enzyme added finished out pretty much right at 0. The whiskey yeast actually didn't get down that low. It was at, I believe, 04.
Yeah, 1004, 1005, somewhere in that range.
And so it actually didn't finish out. And but that's
still markedly drier than you would expect, especially seeing how this was an extract beer.
Yeah.
So the extract is normally a flat 75% fermentable, which means you're going to be left with some residual sugars, about 25% of the total OG.
But that also does sort of solidify our idea of a Brut IPA being able to be done with an extract, in the sense that normally extracts finish a little bit sweeter because they're not as fermentable. But just to go to show, using the AMG enzyme in there will dry those out, and you can end up with a perfectly good brute.
As we found out with this one.
Yeah! All right.
On to tasting?
Yeah, on to tasting.
Before we get tasting, I'm going to move my kid. Back, squeezing back in. Yeah. Definitely start with the London ESB. You'll find out why later.
So it's noticeably sweet, actually, on the aroma, I would say.
Both of them actually did end up with a little bit of that kind of sweetness. Must have had to do with the recipe. I have no idea what recipe we did.
A half pound of Hallertau Blanc.
Okay, yeah.
In the whirlpool, we ended up not actually touching these beers after that. We thought just leave it simple.
Just go for the experiment side of things. So yeah, that is a markedly fruity hop. And a slightly fruitier yeast, too. That London ESB can get a little bit fruity in a good way, not in an overly Englishy fruity way.
Slightly peachy. Still bone dry, though. Yeah. Typical for the beer. Slightly peachy. You definitely get that similar to Nelson Sauvin, which I think that the Hallertau Blanc definitely has that character of a white wine. You get some of those sort of fruity esters in there, and
overall, it's like if a pale ale was like de-Americanized, like in all the ways that make a Northwest or like a West Coast style pale, take out all those harshnesses, and that's what you have, a really nice, clean, slightly fruity pale ale.
Yep. Nothing remarkable, but nice, clean, easy drinking beer.
Yeah.
Onto the whiskey.
The whiskeys. Now you get to find out
Smells like bananas.
Yeah.
Smells straight up. Isoamyl acetate. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, they know what isoamyl acetate is.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, on the nose you get bananas and you get like coriander and black pepper too.
Oh yeah.
It's super phenolic, super estery, and I think this kind of makes sense because in the whiskey, in the distilling process, a lot of those kind of flavors will actually make it through into the distillate. And so a distillate, which is normally very, very neutral and doesn't have a lot of flavors, a whiskey kind of makes sense that it would punch up all the things that would create flavor in the final product.
It tastes remarkably close to a Saison strain, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Actually, almost like a blend of, say, Belgian, maybe like an Ardennes or Abbey strain, because you're getting some of that, some of that fruitiness, right? The fruitiness, the slight bit of bubblegum, the banana character would be almost like more of a Hefeweizen strain, but then also the spiciness from
the phone.
From the phone.
Phones are always pretty spicy.
Yeah.
Here, closer. Used to be like this was way like over the top banana and spice when we first kegged it, but it's getting drinkable.
Now that we've got the phone taken care of, this beer roundabout flavor profile tastes like a really light sort of mixed fermentation farmhouse saison thing.
Farmhouse Saison Crystal Weiss.
Crystal Weiss. It's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, but the only thing that's detracting from this, the only reason this isn't a great beer, other than maybe being over the top with how much esters and phenols are in it, is there is a little bit of a drying kind of, I call it proteininess. We've gotten that when we've added too much enzymes during fermentation before. And so that it does finish a little bit like that, although that has gone away too. It's kind of settling out and turning into a pretty all right beer over time.
That's one thing to consider with the Brut style is when you add those enzymes, they always have a sort of mouth coating. I call it like a meatiness. You call it the protein characteristic.
Yeah.
And that's part of the style. So if you do brew a Brut style IPA or pale ale like these guys were, just if that flavor's in there, don't be disappointed. That's just kind of par for the course.
It happens. But as much as you can minimize that, though, by adding less enzyme and giving fermentation a little bit more time, the better off it's going to be.
Yeah. Ultimately, we'll probably be doing a video down the road on once we get it completely dialed in and try to minimize that flavor while maximizing the happiness.
Happiness.
All right. What's next? All right.
These are the two beers. That's
Two
what they
beers.
look like.
Okay. Yeah.
That was clearer, though.
That was clear, yeah. So imagine these two beers clear. I think that's it.
That's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway. So if you ever want to brew with a whiskey yeast strain, I think what we learned from this is that it is possible. It's going to produce a pretty wild flavor profile, pungent flavor profile as well. But you can definitely brew something. I probably wouldn't do a Brut style IPA with it.
But it's crystal clear.
It is crystal clear, and it did drop out nicely. Like we said, these are about going on a month old now. Yeah. And
I would even say maybe even try this style with like a third the yeast that we use. Those packets are pretty big. We're getting a grain grinder. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun.
Future episodes.
You guys voted on a video that we put out on Election Day, whenever that was. And you voted to say that we should make a s'mores beer. So that is in progress. We brewed it last Saturday. So hopefully another few weeks or so. That should be getting ready, and
so be excited. Stay tuned for some more beers, some videos,
s'mores. All right, I'm gonna end it on that note.
Subscribe, comment, ring the bell for notifications.
Bam!
High five me.
So welcome back to the Genus Brewing channel. While Peter's over there pouring beer, I'm going to do a shameless plug. God damn it! For Ray Troll, an artist that makes these really cool shirts like this one that says "Ain't no nookie like Chinookie." It's pretty awesome.
No idea what that meant.
Don't blow on your camera. I know you love to blow things, but this is not the situation to blow things. Well, that was a little too close to me. Oh, You guys are still watching me. Nice!